The Indiana Lady Hoosiers hold off the Sooners and are heading to the Sweet 16.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. The Indiana Lady Hoosiers hold off the Sooners and are back in the Sweet 16, and their reward is the number one team in the tournament. We'll talk about that today here on Locked On Hoosiers. Plus, I'm looking around the NCAA Tournament at the Big Ten, and Indiana football is now on the field for spring practice. We'll have all that for you on today's episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Thank you so much for being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. If you're on the YouTube channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We are pushing towards 2,000 subscribers. Yes, we're like 30 away. Help us out there, huh? Takes one push of the thumb. It lets you know every time we post a new video. So make sure you do that. Liking the video shares it, grows our audience, which we continue to do every single day. So thank you so much for that. And if you're on the audio platform, thank you so much for being there as well. And you can also hit the notification button so you never miss a new episode as well. Indiana, man, this was an exciting game in the NCAA tournament. Round of 32 on a Monday night. I know it's weird, but that's just how it falls in the women's tournament sometimes. Hoosiers in their final game at home this season inside of Assembly Hall for the Lady Hoosiers. They hold off, and I mean hold off, the Oklahoma Sooners 75-68. And there's so many ways you could describe it. Held off the Sooners, had to come back against the Sooners, had to overcome adversity against the Sooners, whatever you want to say, right? That's what this team did. And before we talk about the game itself, we talk about the All-American Mackenzie Holmes, who, yeah, she did it again. I want to talk about the atmosphere. I want to talk about Assembly Hall, where they didn't really get a chance to put on a show this year, right? We had a couple of big games on the men's side and some bigger games on the women's side too. But we all know the men's games just didn't go the way we wanted to. Couldn't defend home court when you had to and when you wanted to. And even when Purdue came to town, right, they came in and waxed us on our own floor. That last night, what I saw inside of Assembly Hall in the round of 32 for the Indiana women's tournament, that was one of the best atmospheres I've seen all year. All year across college basketball, men's or women's. That was phenomenal. You all showed up and showed out and were overly loud, overly crazy, and it was fantastic. It was awesome to see. I had people texting me from all over the place saying, man, it's a wild atmosphere in Assembly Hall right now. This is crazy for a women's game. This is awesome. Is it always like this? And I said, yes, this is how it's supposed to be. This is what we expect inside of that building. It's why it's one of the toughest places to play in college basketball, men's or women's. So shout out to the Hoosier fans. If you were there, man, that was unbelievable. And it definitely helped this team make a comeback because they were down late. They were down in this fourth quarter and had to come back time after time and eventually take down Oklahoma 75-68. I mentioned it already. Mackenzie Holmes, look, she's an All-American for a reason. And in her final game at that Assembly Hall, in her final home game as an Indiana Hoosier, she put on a heck of a performance, man. You pull up her stats as an individual, 34 minutes played, 29 total points. She had 5 of 7 from the free throw line, 12 of 23 from the floor, had 6 rebounds and assists, 4 blocks as well. And man, when we needed a bucket down the stretch, throw it into Mackenzie Holmes and get out of the way. She played a phenomenal game. Parrish played a phenomenal game. 17 points, man. She was hitting on all cylinders last night from the floor, from the three, from the free throw line. Also, how about this? She had 8 rebounds, which is really, really good for her, and had 5 assists as well. So she played a phenomenal game. And then, of course, Scalia had another solid night of 12 points. She's almost your consistent basis factor on this squad. So your 3 biggest players stepped up at the biggest time. And that's what you're supposed to do in the NCAA tournament. You just have to rely on your best players. Didn't get any bench production. You got 1 point, but you know what? That's fine. Your bench shortens up in tournament time anyway, and your best players got it done. But I told you on this show that Oklahoma squad was no joke. That was a good team that was going to give us everything that we wanted, and they absolutely did. And I was stressing down the stretch. I was worried, man. Look, you're tied after 1, up at the half, and you're still leading, and then Oklahoma comes out in that fourth quarter, and they make a run. And it's like, oh, no, this is not good. We're losing. Going into the under 4, we're down by a couple of buckets and had to continue to come back and get stops. And thankfully, a couple of turnovers from Oklahoma, a couple of sloppy passes. Some were forced, some not so much. Indiana took advantage of it. We made free throws. We got the best free throw shooter in the country. And with all that being said, we get a massive, massive win. Final game of the year at home, 17-0 at home for this women's team at Assembly Hall. And you could tell just how much it meant to those seniors as they rushed into the student section, as they're hugging, they're crying, they're just so excited celebrating with us fans at Assembly Hall. And it is sad to see a lot of these girls go, but they've had amazing careers here. And the season's not over. That's what's exciting. The season is not over. But as I mentioned, look, this is why we were upset with Indiana's draw to begin with and how they should have been higher than a 4 seed. And not only should they have been higher than a 4 seed, they deserve to not be in the number 1 overall team's bracket. I believe that. I think we're better than that. I think we had a better season than that. But the committee didn't see it that way. And you get to the Sweet 16, and your reward is the number 1 overall team in the country, South Carolina. And that's a really tough team, man. I don't have to tell you that. That's a talented team. That's a team trying to get back to a national championship, a team that is very much capable of doing so, that we're going to have our hands full with. But that's for a different time. We can celebrate another appearance in the Sweet 16. This team is solid. This team is talented. This team is a lot of fun to watch. And shout out to them. Shout out to the Hoosiers fans. Shout out to just this entire organization, this fan base, this team, this university, for what they've been able to do surrounding this women's basketball program and the success that they've had all season long. They're back in the Sweet 16, taking on number 1 South Carolina as Mackenzie Holmes and the Lady Hoosiers take down the Oklahoma Sooners. Well, coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, I want to take a look around the NCAA tournament at what the Big Ten has been doing. A couple of representatives in the men's Sweet 16 as well. We'll take a look at that when we come back on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers, all right, if you're a new customer on FanDuel, they're going to give you $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's right. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, and look, you can still bet on who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON and bet on college hoops until they cut down the net. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to get $200 if your first $5 bet or more wins. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. So from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and much more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors, they've got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. And we want you to add this to your rotation, whether you're on the way to work, whether you're in the shower, whether you're eating breakfast, getting the kids ready. I don't care what you're doing. Just make sure you turn us on in the mornings, okay? Locked On Hoosiers is where you want to be. I want to look at the NCAA Tournament men's bracket for a minute, as we do have the Sweet 16 set on the men's side. And I want to look at kind of what's been going on the Big Ten and what's some of the upsets and kind of reset this as we get ready for this coming weekend in the NCAA tournament. You had numerous Big Ten teams representing the conference. Northwestern started off with a win over FAU. I didn't have that, but hey, Boo Booey, he's a dog, he's a man, he got it done, right? Then they fell to UConn in game 2. But how about Illinois? That's a team I just didn't trust. That's a team I didn't trust going into the tournament. It's a team that normally falls flat on their face when they get to this time of year, but taking down Morehead State fairly easily. Same thing with Duquesne, who upset BYU in the first round. And now, one of the games I'm most excited for, believe it or not, Illinois facing Iowa State in the Sweet 16. I am really, really excited for that because, I mean, those are two teams that are going to lock up defensively, probably not score a ton, and the first one to 65 is probably going to win. So shout out to Illinois for actually making it deep in the NCAA tournament for the first time in what seems like a long time. Look, I know we have a bad taste in our mouth about Nebraska for what they did to us, Indiana, this season, but so many people caught on to Keisei Tominaga, who, look, he's a good story. He is. He's a good story. He's fun to watch when he's not lighting us up for 30 points. And everybody jumped on that train. They just couldn't do anything about it. That Texas A&M team took him down. And that's an A&M team that took Houston, who is one of the best teams in the country, to the wire and gave them everything they wanted in overtime in the round of 32. So Nebraska falls short in their first game. Wisconsin, I knew this was going to happen. I knew it. I had James Madison in mind, and I was so confident in this. They fall to James Madison, 72-61, who then turned around and just got whopped by Duke, 93-55. I did not have them getting beat that bad by Duke. But again, Wisconsin just was going downhill really all season long. They somehow turned it on in the Big Ten tournament. I don't really know what happened there. And then they get to the big NCAA tournament and they do what they normally do. And they just could not perform, only scoring 61 points. That's typically not good enough in the NCAA tournament. Of course, Purdue doing their thing. And look, I had a feeling that this was going to happen with Purdue. When you have a team that's a number 1 seed, like they were, in a high seed like they were a year ago, coming back as a 1 seed, getting embarrassed like they did a year ago, right, with one of the biggest upsets in the tournament's history. Normally, that team comes back with a vengeance the next year. And that's exactly what's happening here with Purdue. Beat Grambling by a lot, beat Utah State by even more. And out of all teams, this is not who I had them playing. They're playing Gonzaga. And look, I don't know if I've expressed my thoughts about Gonzaga much on this program, but shout out to them. That I did not have them in my Sweet 16. I didn't even have them getting out of the first round. So shout out to Mark Few and Gonzaga again, taking down McNeese and Kansas. That's looks tougher than it was, I think. But hey, they're there. I think Purdue's probably going to roll again in that game and probably have a walk-in to the Elite Eight and take on either Creighton or Tennessee. And look, as much as we hate it, Purdue's a good team. They're a really good team, and they should be making a run to the Final Four. I don't want to see it, but it's kind of where we are right now with that team and what the bracket looks like for them. And then the other Big Ten squad, a team that I'm not going to say I was necessarily wrong about, but I wasn't 100% right. Okay. Michigan State. I told you that I did not believe Michigan State was worthy of making it into the NCAA tournament. I didn't think they did what it deserved. I didn't think they had the resume. I didn't think they had the wins. I didn't think they had the record. I didn't think they had anything to get into the tournament besides the name of the man who's their head coach and the brand and the logo that they bring with them. That's what I thought. And I still believe that. But for them, luckily for them, they came out in the very first game of the NCAA tournament on Thursday to lead it all off, right, that morning. They came out and they proved something. They made a little statement against Mississippi State, 69-51. Now, they shut down that Mississippi State team, and Josh Hubbard, who, if you don't know him, he was one of the most electrifying freshmen in college basketball this past season. They shut him down, and credit to him, man. Michigan State came out and got a win in the tournament, and I have to own that, and congratulations to them. But then North Carolina exposed them like they were supposed to be exposed in the first game, and they lost 85-69, which shout out to North Carolina too, because I just didn't know what they had in the tank. And now they got to play that Alabama team who scores 110 points every game. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Michigan State, they won a game. So I guess there's not a whole lot that I can say. I still don't think they should have been there, but I mean, again, I can't argue with that. You get in and you win. So good for them. So yeah, UConn, San Diego State, Illinois, Iowa State. Illinois, of course, a team that we saw as Indiana. And then you have Purdue in there against Gonzaga. And you have, that's pretty much it for the Big Ten. But again, I think Purdue is really good. And I think Zach Edey has taken that step this season from what they were last year to this year. And if you're looking at this from a Big Ten standpoint, I know Hoosiers fans and when it gets to this time, it's weird because passionate fans like us, we struggle with putting our team fandom aside and trying to cheer for the conference. Some people love to cheer for the Big Ten. If you're an SEC school fan, you like to cheer for the SEC or the Pac-12 or whoever, right? But there are some fans, and I totally get it. I'm typically one of these where it's like, I'm an Indiana fan. I don't want to see Purdue win ever. And, Illinois, I don't really care. And I don't think I want to see them win. Like, I get it. I really, really do. But from a Big Ten perspective, as I'm kind of talking here, you got to be proud to have two teams in the Sweet 16 compared to, two from the Big East? No, three from the Big East. You've got a couple from the ACC with Clemson, North Carolina, and Duke. So three of them. Four of them, because NC State is still making their crazy run. Shout out to them. One or two. You got two from the Big 12 and one from the SEC and a Pac-12 team in there as well. So, the Big Ten has been a conference that hasn't been fully respected this year. And again, understandably so. But you put two teams in the Sweet 16, and I think both of those teams have a good chance to make it to the Elite Eight and then possibly to the Final Four. Well, coming up in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll talk about some football for a minute as the Hoosiers are on the practice field for the spring. Talk about what we're seeing, what we're hearing so far, and what we can expect from this Curt Cignetti squad in spring practice. That's coming up in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. Just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Iowa State Cyclones, we were just talking about them. The Iowa State Cyclones can only be described as a Pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves, entering the tournament as one of the hottest teams in the country. They have a date with Illinois this Thursday in the Sweet 16. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, talking a little bit of basketball. Now switching over to a little bit of football as well, as Indiana and head coach Curt Cignetti hit the practice field late last week. And while we don't have a ton of, news or information, right? I've said this a few times, but I want to preface this again as we're getting into that time of the year. Look, spring practice for college football is not meant for massive storylines and big position battles and wins, right? Naming day one starters and stuff like that. Like that's typically not what it's for. Doesn't mean we won't have stuff like that. Doesn't mean you won't have somebody separate themselves in the quarterback room or the safeties room or the linebacker room. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying that can't happen, but that's not what the spring is about. The spring, especially right now when you bring in a new head coach and a new coaching staff, this is about the coaches learning who your guys are, learning what they can do, who you like, who you may need to help work on a little bit, who's got what skill sets, and where can you put certain guys. Like, that's what the spring is about. It's not about coming in and implementing 1,000 new plays and making sure you're game ready, because you're not game ready yet. And you don't have to be until late August, early September. You're coming in to develop and train and work out, right? And get a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, discipline. Those things are what you're doing right now. And I'm curious to start hearing what the players are saying about this Curt Cignetti-led team. And I've seen some photos. I've seen some videos from practice from the different quarterbacks with Curtis Rourke and Tyler Cherry, right? Guys coming in and even Taven Jackson too. In our running back room that I'm really, really excited about with Elijah Green and Kalen Black. So you've got some guys here that are going to be some really good players, guys that a lot of them came in with Cignetti from James Madison, other guys coming in from other programs. And look, there's a lot of new faces and new names that we have to learn too, because we just don't know a lot of these guys in Indiana uniforms. But again, that's what the spring is for. And so what's going to be the game plan? This is a really crucial time too for Curt Cignetti to come in and really establish what he wants as a program, the fundamentals, the foundation, if you will, of his program. You come in and I don't want to say lay down the law, but you come in and you're saying, okay, I know you don't know me. I don't really know you. We're going to take this time to get to know each other. But while we do that, this is what I expect. This is what we're going to do. Here's our roadmap. Here's where we're going to go. And here's how we're going to get there. And we're going to do it my way. We're going to do it the way I want to. And we're going to hopefully get better as we go. That's what this time is about. Then you'll have your spring, right? You'll have a spring game, scrimmage, whatever the heck you want to call it. Then you have summer workouts, and then you won't see anything until the fall. And again, don't expect to hear a ton of, oh, this guy's lighting it up or blah, blah, blah. And even if you do, just don't read into it all that much, okay? Because the spring is the spring. They're throwing against nobody most of the time. Sometimes they are, but even then, it's just the spring. It's not live game. It's not live action. It's not getting them game prepared and game ready just yet. So, yeah, you're going to hear some things that guys are having good springs, and that's fine. I'm sure the coaches are going to tell you that. And they can have good springs, but I want to hear the guys that are doing it the right way. Who are the guys that are disciplined and following the directions and picking up on things quicker than others? Look, I don't care if somebody throws a better ball at practice today than somebody did yesterday. Not that big of a deal right now. That's a fall conversation. This is about, let's rebuild this program from the ground up and build it the right way and try to fix the things that this program has been lacking in for a long, long time in terms of Indiana football. And I think Curt Cignetti is going to do that. And I'm excited for it. And I hope you are as well. And we're going to update you as we go. And then you got to think about this too. The spring portal window is going to open up right around the corner. I mean, as spring is ending. And so we expect to see movement there as well. And that's what you get to do in this period too, is like, okay, we don't have many guys at this position, or we need to go get some more depth at this position, or you know what, we're actually okay over here, but we heard this guy enter the portal. Let's at least reach out, see what's going on, right? You can do that too. And so I'm excited for that. I'm excited to keep up with the portal for football and continuing to keep up with it for basketball as well. And then following this Indiana women's team through the NCAA tournament as they take on the number 1 overall seed, South Carolina. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, if you made it through the whole thing, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here and making sure you're an everydayer. That's right. Those of you that come back every single day, thank you so much. Like the video on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel on YouTube as well. We're pushing towards 2,000. That would mean so much to me. And we have continued to grow this thing since I got here. So thank you so much. If you're on audio, turn on notifications. You'll never miss a new episode there as well. We'll be back tomorrow. So until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.